Every so often people ask me why we started the WISE program to begin with, and usually I say to them, well, how many days or weeks do you have to spend? We'll feed you, we'll let you sleep over, but it's such a long story, and again, some of my students have taught me that you have to condense. And as I look back on how WISE emerged, it really came out of a class that I taught at Woodlands High School, which began as a class in comparative economic systems, and then moved into sociology. And then from that moved into a sort of combination of social studies, social science subjects called the Introduction to the Behavioral Sciences. And what was wonderful about that class was not only that the kids for the first time in high school got a look at social science, not social studies, not history, but social science, looking at human behavior from a scientific point of view and at least having some gross modicum of ability to predict some aspects of human behavior. And the kids were fascinated by it. The other piece of that program, that class that was so important, was that it was a heterogeneous class of 50 seniors, roughly, from the brightest to the weakest academically, but that doesn't mean the weakest intellectually. There's a range of achievement in the same class, and two teachers, Herb Kamitz and myself. So the only way we could teach that class, we couldn't teach to the bottom. We couldn't teach to the top, although some people try to do that in a heterogeneous setting, and we couldn't teach to the middle because you lose everybody else. We taught in a way which was actually a conversation. Herb and I would have the conversation. The third party to the conversation were the 50 kids. It was just breathtaking. And kids who had never achieved well in school suddenly blossomed in the class. They were helped by the more verbal kids. We had a reading teacher who worked with us to help any kids who needed support. And what began to happen is the kids began to open up to us about their own issues as adolescents. And the issue that always created a wall is, where do we go from here? Now what? We finally got a class where we got some people who can listen, to understand us, where we read about ourselves. When they read a psychologist who's noted in the field, Erik Erikson, and they say, how did this guy from Denmark know about my 16-year-old trauma with my parents? We began to say to them, well, what else do you need to rivet this stuff and to make it possible for you to go on in the world? They said, if we could just do something that we like. School sort of lets you do things that the school wants you to do and tells you to do. Wouldn't it be neat? There was sort of a pathos in their comment about this. Wouldn't it be neat if we could do something that we were passionate about? Light bulb went on. And that's where WISE began. We got our principal to agree to let the kids do projects based on their interest for the last 10 weeks of school. It was a nightmare to supervise, but the results were so stunning that we knew we had to make it much more structured without killing the spirit. And out of that experiment in 1971 and 72 came the full-blown WISE program with a task force of community members, teachers, and students to run it, with a passion-driven project, with a mentor selected by the student, not appointed, with a journal to document the student's journey through his project, a presentation to demonstrate mastery and knowledge and adulthood, and a final assessment by a committee of peers, teachers, and community members to see how well they've done. And once we did that, and we began to see the results, it was quite unbelievable for very experienced teachers and parents to say about their children, I had no idea my son could do this kind of work. And my wife finally said, when my two children did their WISE project, she summed up for me the most important aspect of the program. She said, I now feel very comfortable and secure about letting them